Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
And also by the Mama Nurture Prenatal Yoga School. Visit mamanurture.ca to learn more about teaching prenatal, fertility, postnatal, and baby and me yoga. Welcome to episode 107 of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. We've all heard the adage, content is king, but where many of us often get stuck is creating the content and getting it out to our audience. Yoga comes naturally to us, but the written word may not, which is why I've invited Abby Herman, a content strategist who specializes in working with small business owners, to share her tips to launch and promote your yoga offering. I personally have been following Abby for a while and using some of her content strategies in my own business, and I see it really working. If you've been wanting to get on board with promoting your yoga offering, or if you find yourself getting stuck in consistently creating meaningful and relevant content for your audience, this is the episode for you. Also, listen to the end of the episode to find out how you can stand a chance to win a live, one-on-one content planning session with Abby, where you get to map out 90 days of content. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are a returning listener, it's great to see you back. My name is Shannon Crow. I'm a mother of three, a yoga teacher, and a trainer and consultant working for yoga teachers. This podcast was created for you so that you can connect to information and inspiration every week and feel supported as you navigate the jungles of yoga entrepreneurship. If you are looking for information or links that Abby and I refer to in this episode, you can find them at theconnectedyogateacher.com/107. Before we meet Abby, let's hear our hot tip of the week from Schedulicity.
Hello, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Blake with Schedulicity with the hot tip of the week. It's easy to create and market a yoga retreat using your Schedulicity account. All you need to do is create a workshop with the dates, location, price, and description for your retreat. Next, use one of our email marketing templates to send an informative message to your client list. You can require a deposit or prepayment at the time of booking if you'd like, which can help your students commit.
Thank you so much, Schedulicity. Alrighty, let's dive in. Abby, as I said, is a content strategist for small business owners. She helps her clients to get their message out to their audience in their own voice and in their own terms. She specializes in working with service-based businesses and draws on her 10 years of experience to help small businesses generate ideas and strategies to move their business forward. And this is important because we want to spend our time making content that really connects with our ideal yoga student and also motivates them to sign up for our classes, our events, our workshops, our retreats, because we are small business owners as yoga teachers. Also, as yoga teachers, we have something really special to share with the world. But if people don't know about us and the work that we do and the benefits of yoga, we're not even giving ourselves the chance to serve them. That's why content is so important. The right content connects with your ideal client, your ideal yoga student, and attracts them to you, especially when we're trying to launch and promote a yoga offering. The content that we put out there is ultimately how yoga students decide if they want to work with us or show up to a class with us. And I hear from many of you that knowing where to start and what platform to choose and what to say is the hard part. And that's where Abby comes in. She has so many great insights about the whole process of content creation, from picking a zone of genius, brainstorming to generate ideas, creating complimentary content, sending emails, and so much more. I could go on, but I really want you to dig in now with me and hear it for yourself from Abby. You might want to grab a pen and some paper because there are so many nuggets of wisdom in this. Or if you're on the go, save the episode and come back to it. All right, let's go ahead and meet Abby of Right Solutions. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, Abby. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I know. I'm super excited that we get time to chat. I feel like I watch your Instagram stories Also, our team worked with you. Is it a year ago now? Was it around Christmas?
I think it has been about a year. Yeah, it's been a while. Yes, it has been because you did that for your team for the holidays. So yes, it has been. Exactly.
I'm excited that we're going to dive in and talk about content and specifically around launching today. But first of all, I just wanted to ask, like, have you ever been to a yoga class? I know you're not a yoga teacher.
I have. I've done hot yoga before, and to be total, so I've tried to do a few yoga classes at home through YouTube videos. I have a really hard time with which means I need it, right? With just how it slows you down and really gets you very centered. And I have a hard time with that. I'm a runner. And so getting a good sweat on and moving as quickly as I can is that's kind of my jam, which means I need to slow down. I need the stretches, and I don't do it.
I love your honesty. It's good for our audience to hear from people who aren't yoga teachers. So it's super fun. And I also love that we're going to talk about something that I think really does impact the yoga teacher profession. So before we do that, let's also find out, what is the work that you do and who do you do it for?
So I am a content strategist and copywriter, and I work with service-based business owners to help them get their message out to their audience so that they can attract the perfect audience members to them as paying clients.
Amazing. We are going to talk about launching. What does launching mean to you?
Launching means you are putting something out there, it could be something new, it could be something that you've offered before, but you're putting something out there to your audience. And it's a way to really, narrowly focus your audience's attention on one thing that you want them to buy.
Okay. So if I look at this in terms of being a yoga teacher, the first thing that comes to mind is like a class series. Like, say I'm doing a registered session and I want my students to sign up. And in my own experience as a yoga teacher, doing this, planning this, and working in many different studios as manager and working with different yoga teachers, I feel like we put an idea out there and then we just kind of sit back and wait for people to sign up. We're like, that's an amazing offering, sign up. And tell us, how much time do we need leading up to a launch?
Well, so first, just putting it out there, adding something to your class schedule if you have a class schedule, mentioning something. So I also go to a boxing class at a boxing studio, and they often will mention like a special event that they're having. And they mention at the end of the class when people are cleaning up their mats and they're, and we're not really listening. So mentioning something once or even several times, people have to hear things like 7, 8, 9 times in order for it to really register. So putting it out there into the world and saying, okay, it's on the schedule. People are going to come. They're not really going to come until you, and I think people, a lot of times, business owners don't like to mention the thing, whatever it is, multiple times because they feel like they're being salesy and annoying. And, business owners, I think our job is to sell. Otherwise, we're not going to stay in business very long. So you have to be able to put it out there. I recommend if you have, it depends on what it is, that you're selling, what you're launching, but usually up to 12 weeks ahead of time is a good rule of thumb. So if you have, let's say you have a special event of some sort, you're showcasing a guest instructor that's coming to your studio. So starting to talk about it 12 weeks in advance is a good rule of thumb so that enough people come to that event that you feel like it was worthwhile, that if you paid this yoga teacher to come, they're getting enough exposure. And by talking about it, I mean, putting it in like a weekly newsletter, putting it that you email to your clientele, by talking about it during the classes, before the class when people are paying attention, after the class, having the person at your front desk talk about it, having flyers at your front desk, mentioning it on social media multiple times, every week leading up to the event, having people register for the event in like a Facebook event or using Eventbrite or something like that to so that you get a commitment from people to actually come. Whether it's a free event or not, you still want to get a commitment, because once they say, yes, I'll be there, they're much more likely to actually show up, even if it's free.
That's so true. It's interesting that you say 12 weeks, because I feel like yoga teachers are like, I have this idea and I want to do this in 4 weeks.
Tomorrow,
or 6. Yeah.
or tomorrow.
Oh, why is no one signing up? I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I had such a low attendance. It must be the workshop. Maybe people don't want this. So what I'm hearing from you makes me think that we're probably not giving it enough time.
That could be part of it. And it is possible to launch something in a shorter time frame, as long as you are nurturing your audience on a regular basis before that. So if you have something that it has a tight turnaround, maybe you just found out that someone is going to be in town that wants to teach a guest class in your studio. Great. Like, I wouldn't discount that. I wouldn't say no, of course. I would, welcome them to come. But then you should have had time before that, before that 4-week window. You should have time before that that you've been nurturing your audience, that you've been sending emails, that you've been having conversations with them. Obviously not about that specific event, but having conversations with them so that they know to expect things in their inbox on a semi-regular basis from you. You don't want to completely, especially the people who don't come in and practice regularly. You should still have some sort of contact with them, even if they're not inside your studio.
Okay, so this brings another question that I hear all the time from yoga teachers. Often they'll send out an email when they have an event coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And then wonder, why are people unsubscribing, or why aren't people engaging with my emails or replying back? And you're saying nurture your audience. So the main question that comes out of that I hear from yoga teachers is, what do I say in this email? If I send an email out every week or two, I'm running out of things to say. So can you help us brainstorm what that content might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, people are unsubscribing because you're sending them sales emails and that's it. So the nurturing piece comes into thinking about who your audience is and what's important to them. So when I think about someone who practices yoga on a regular basis, or even a semi-regular basis, someone who's signed up in your studio is someone who likely cares about their health. They care about their mindset, and they care about nutrition and taking care of themselves. They care about being present in their life, and so in their own life. And so anything that revolves around that is quality content to share. So for example, so let's say we're coming on winter break right now when we're recording this. So kids are coming home from school, or even like summer break. Kids will be home from school, and sometimes it's hard to be present in your own house when your kids are at home. I have a teenager and she loves to talk, which is great, but I work from home, and so it's really difficult for me to do that when she's home. So what are some things that, as a yoga studio, what are some things that you can share, some ideas on how we can be more focused in our day-to-day life? How can we deal with the craziness that comes when our kids are home during the day, during winter break, spring break, summer break? And so share ideas around that, because you as the yoga teacher, the professional, you're the expert in that centeredness and that being more present and feeling more complete in your life. And so what can you share with the quote unquote regular people who need help in that? And then at the same time, the nutrition piece. So when you have kids home all day, you have kids going to the refrigerator and to the pantry to get snacks. So what are some things that we can have on hand to make sure that our whole family is being more aware of their health and their fitness? So what are some snacks that we can have that, different age groups of kids can easily prepare them by themselves or can just grab on their own that's already prepared? So things like that it is great content to have, and it allows the yoga teacher, the studio owner, to help their clients just feel more complete, and like they're not just showing up to the yoga studio to practice yoga. It's a whole experience, and so the more you can expand that experience for your clients, the better, and the more willing they will be to buy the thing, or to pay the extra $10 for the special event, or whatever it happens to be.
Great. And so next question is, how do you in your own business, do you make this list? Do you brainstorm? Do you sit down at a specific time? The worst feeling for me as a yoga teacher, or when I managed yoga studios, was to think the email has to go out today. What am I going to say?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I do a couple of things in my own business and with clients. So one of the things I do is I have a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet called Zones of Genius. And so think about, and I'll do it like from the perspective of a yoga teacher, so it's more relatable, or from somebody in the health and fitness industry. So if you think about the things that you, as the studio owner or the yoga teacher, are an expert at. So what are the things that you love to talk about? What are the things that bring you joy, that you share with your clients all the time, that you talk about with other people in your industry? So what are those things? And so I recommend coming up with 5 to 7 different umbrella topics. So those could be the specific area of yoga that you like to focus in, or the type of yoga that you do. It could be, like I said before, the nutrition piece. It could be it could be something with mindfulness. So I put those in the top column, or the top row of a Google spreadsheet, each in a different field. And then underneath that, brainstorm as many things as you can think of, as many topics, as many questions that you've gotten about each of those umbrella ideas. So for the nutrition, what can I feed my child in the summer? How do I cut fat out of my diet? What's the best type of protein to have? How can I be a vegan and still build muscle? I mean, things like that. And so once you've done that, you have as many ideas as you just can. I mean, you have all these topic ideas. Now, you're not going to use them all probably, but you have them there to kind of help guide your content planning. So I actually have a blog post that I wrote about how I came up with 150 blog posts, 1 year blog post ideas for my own business. And it's just a matter of just like sitting down and brainstorming. So take an hour to do something like that, and then go back and revisit it, a week from now or 2 weeks from now, and you can add to it. Anytime somebody asks you a question, find which umbrella topic it goes under and plop it in your spreadsheet. So you have this constantly evolving list of topic ideas. So once you've done that and you have all of the ideas, then you can think about your business in terms of, I like to do themes. So what are the things that people are most concerned about during certain times of the year? So November, December, it might be how to eat healthy during the holidays, how to stay healthy, how to find time to, make it to the yoga studio or to practice yoga. In the summertime, it could be, practicing when you're on vacation. Like, how do you find the time? What are some things that you can do on the beach, or, in February at the ski lodge? What are the things that you can do to continue your practice when you're away from home or away from the studio? So think about, content in themes that way. And then it's a lot easier to then take those themes and plug in different ideas for a blog, for an email that you send out to your audience, for social media posts. because everything kind of relates to that one thing. And you're helping your audience solve a particular problem that they might have during that period of time, during the summer when they're away from home and they want to practice yoga, during the holidays when they're feeling really stressed out and they, are just emotional eating or, whatever they're not getting into the studio to practice. So they're getting even more stressed out. So it really helps to create that content and come up with more ideas that all kind of align together.
So two things that I hear for sure in that is that we're knowing the season that our audience is in, and we listen to the questions and the struggles that they have.
Yes.
I'm visualizing this Excel spreadsheet, and at the top are these umbrellas. Is there a limit on how many umbrellas? I was imagining pages and pages of Excel.
I'm glad that you asked that. Yes, I think that anything more than, think about like in your own life, you can do a lot of things, but how many things can you do really well, right? Like how many things do you feel like you can really excel at? So the umbrella topics would be the big ideas that you talk about. So in my own business, I think I have like 8 or 9, so I probably have too many, but that's after being in business for a long time. So I have a lot of things that I talk about: content strategy, blogging, email marketing, course creation, things like that are like big umbrella topics. And then I can talk about smaller things underneath that. When you have too many, your message gets watered down. And so people don't really know what to come to you for. They don't really know what you're an expert in. And so like if you want to talk about parenting, so parenting is, kind of is probably outside of the yoga teacher zone or realm for a lot of people. But if people bring their children to your studio, then maybe that's a topic that you can talk about because you have experience, because you have children in your studio. For people who, don't allow children in the classes, it might not make sense to talk about parenting. So think about like the things that you're really good at, the things that you're really passionate about, and focus on those. And then I also recommend that those kind of umbrella topics become, if you have a blog, they can become your blog categories. So, and you don't want to have too many blog categories either. So it's important to keep it as narrow as you can.
Oh, I love this. It really goes in and ties in with the niche thing. And also on the podcast, we often talk about finding what is our expertise and also our scope of practice as yoga teachers, which you already brought in. Like, it's fine if we are educated in nutrition, then we can be, that could be one of our umbrellas. But if we feel like, no, that's not my thing at all, then we would leave that out. That's really good to know. I'm thinking of other examples, like some teachers are super passionate about Sanskrit. I am not an expert in Sanskrit at all. Anatomy is another one where some teachers love it, other teachers don't. So this is really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So would it take you an hour to make this list of 150 things?
No, it took me, I think I probably sat for about an hour to list as many topics as I could. And then I came back to it later. Like I didn't make it all in one sitting. And I think that, idea generation happens to be a zone of genius for me. It's something that I can do really quickly. And I've done it a lot. But for someone who has never done it before, come up with, maybe 5 different zones, 5 different, top level areas, and then come up with 10, challenge yourself to come up with 10 topics for each one of those. And, like this goes back to, what you learned in corporate or what you learned in elementary school or high school. No idea, when you're brainstorming, no idea is a bad idea. Just because you write it down does not mean you have to use it. Sometimes coming up with what you feel like is a ridiculous idea will help you to generate more ideas. And you never know, you might come up with something that you think is silly. And if you talk to somebody about it, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I want to know about that. It also helps to, something I recommend a lot too, is to create a survey to send out to select members of your audience. I wouldn't send it to everyone on your email list. I would pick and choose very specific people who are truly your ideal person. So if you have people who come to your studio on a regular basis, or who you communicate, if you teach online, if it's somebody that you communicate with a lot and they really are engaged in what you're doing, and it's somebody you love to work with, then send them a survey. Ask them to fill out a survey about what they want to hear from you, because sometimes we're so close to our own content and our own ideas that we don't really know what other people need to know. Like, we don't know what they don't know, right? So ask them. I mean, the more you ask, the more you talk to your audience, the more likely you are to start being able to create that content that they really need and want from you.
That's amazing. I'm thinking about right now that I could do that with the yoga students who I've seen this year and say to them, hey, what do you guys want in 2019? I just said you guys. Connected yoga teachers, I'm popping in here quick to say, did you just hear me say you guys? Oh, I'm cringing a little bit. Some of you know I shared my struggle with this on Instagram, and I've shared it with a few different friends, that I've been trying to stop saying you guys. And it was hard. I'm cringing a little bit, but I purposely left this in here so that you can hear what it's like when I catch myself. And then I ask Suzanne to edit something, and she's great. She would have cut this out in a blink, but I want you to hear it, mostly because I mess up a lot. I try to use language that isn't offensive, and that's a whole other podcast. If you want to hear more about that, go back and listen to episode 92. But I just want you to know that as we talk about creating content, if we are not messing up in our content, we are not creating content. And we can't always edit ourselves. So let's let it go. The perfectionistic tendencies that we have when we create content. Okay, back to this amazing conversation with Abby about how we can plan out our content to promote a yoga offering. I follow your Instagram stories mostly. And you talked the other day about not just taking our content and then moving it over to another platform. For example, a podcast and an audio like this one right now, or a Facebook Live, and then changing that into a podcast. You had a really interesting perspective on creating new content. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, this is one of my soapbox things. So I'm so glad you asked. So you create a blog. I'm just going to use the blog I'll use the podcast as an example. So you have a podcast that you put out there to your audience. You want your people to listen to the podcast. And so they've subscribed to you on iTunes, and they listen to the podcast. Now, let's say you send an email. You want to send an email out to let people know, to let your subscribers know, or your email subscribers know that the podcast is now available in case they're not subscribed on iTunes. The last thing you want to do is to give them all of the juicy details of that podcast in the email. You want to give them a little bit so that they're encouraged to click the link in the email and then go over to the podcast to listen. But you don't want to give away everything, because then as soon as they get to the podcast and they start listening to it and they think, I just read this on her email. Why am I going to waste my time and listen to it when I've already read it? So the people who are subscribed to your email list then start to learn, I don't really have to listen to the podcast because she's giving it all away in the email. So I'm not going to click over. I'm not going to go look at, or I'm not going to go listen. So not only are you losing viewers or listeners in iTunes, but you're also losing those click-throughs in your email, which whoever your email provider is paying attention to that. So ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit or MailChimp or Aweber, whoever you're using for your emails, they pay attention to those click-throughs. So your click-through rate goes down and your deliverability goes down because of that, because you're not providing valuable content, even though you are, but the email provider doesn't know that. And the same thing happens with blogs. So a lot of people create blog posts and they copy and paste them into the emails because it's easier. But same thing happens. They start to learn that, well, I don't really have to go read the blog. So now you're losing Google Analytics. You're losing that traction that you're getting on your website because people are not going to go read your blog because you've already included it in your email. And the same thing with YouTube videos. If you're just transcribing your YouTube videos and creating a blog out of that, you're going to lose audience members. So what I recommend doing is creating content that is complementary but not the same. So today we're talking about, just content in general and idea generation. So maybe in your email to your subscribers, you give them one or two talking points, one or two juicy quotes from today and say, listen in to the rest over on iTunes or on my website. If you're writing a blog post about, I don't know, what's a good topic to talk about? Alignment. Let's say alignment, when you're doing a yoga pose. So maybe what's it called? The downward dog. I know a little bit.
You do.
How to do the downward dog. And maybe your blog post talks about downward dog and it shows pictures or maybe even an embedded video on how to do it properly. And then your email to your subscribers, your email subscribers, could talk about why the downward dog is such an important pose, or how maybe it's a funny story about you learning how to do it, how you didn't do it before, or something like that encourages people to go. It entertains them in the email, encourages people to go to the blog post or to the video and to get more information. So they go together, but it's not repeating the same content on both platforms.
Okay. And then can we do the same thing, say, if we go to post on Instagram or Facebook, or do we use sort of pieces of it and then change it?
You can. So sometimes, your email should be very story driven and talk and have stories, because and it should also have added value, because people are trusting you with their email address, which is kind of a big deal these days with how many emails we get, right? True. So people are trusting you with their email address. Give them some added value that you're not giving away anywhere else. Instagram stories, you can say on Instagram stories, hey, I talked about this thing on my email this week, or, tomorrow an email's coming out and I'm going to talk about this. Make sure you're signed up so you can get the information. Or you can tell a different story on your Instagram stories. On your Instagram post, like the captions on the post, I recommend, again, talking about doing some story involved there, but make it a little more personal. Instagram is very heartfelt, I guess is the word that I would, people are like very vulnerable on Instagram. If that's something that you're comfortable with, you can, do something like that. And then on Facebook, I recommend like a little bit of a teaser to get people to click on the link. So you don't want, I don't recommend Facebook and Instagram being interconnected. So a lot of people, what they post on Instagram automatically post to Facebook. Well, Facebook doesn't use hashtags like Instagram does. So the formatting looks a little awkward when you do that. So I recommend having a separate caption, a different caption on Facebook, because the same thing, you don't want the same content on two different places. You can use the same picture, but I wouldn't use the same text. So on Facebook, your caption can say something like, doing the downward dog is a important pose in yoga practice because, and give one little tidbit. Don't tell people to click on the link. They'll know when they see the photo, they see the little preview, they'll know to click on it. But Facebook will ding you, for lack of a better word, if you say click on this thing, because you're directing people away from their platform. So you don't want to say go click on this thing. You just want to give a little bit of a teaser. People will know to click because they see the image, they see the link, and they'll click on it and go to your blog.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
A question about this. Yeah, just a really technical question, because I was thinking about this with my own Facebook page. So when I post like a quote from the podcast, I talk about it on Facebook. And I'm not sure if I should put the link to the episode, but that's what generates the clickable link and that image that they can click on. Or if I should just have the website address in the image, which I already have it there as well. Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Yeah, I would go ahead and make it easy on the user, on the end user, and include the link on there. To be honest, the Facebook algorithms change like every other day. So
Yes.
you never know what is going to work and what isn't going to work. My theory is have a presence on Facebook, be there, be present, interact with people when they are responding to whatever you're posting, and don't worry so much about the algorithms and what changes they're making yesterday or tomorrow. Just be present and post, and I think you'll be fine.
Here's a question. So I do not feel comfortable at all on Pinterest, the platform Pinterest. So do I try to be on there because it's uncomfortable for me, or do I just hire someone else, or do I just forget about it and not be on it?
So I think that goes back again to the zones of genius. If it's not your zone of genius, then either hire it out or don't worry about it right now. You can only do so much in your business, and you cannot possibly be everywhere and do everything well. So focus on what you do know. And if you feel like Pinterest is a place where you should grow, then I would hire somebody to help you. So I've personally hired somebody to help me with Pinterest because it is not in my zone of genius, and it's not really something that I want to learn how to do. I don't even use it personally. So I let somebody else handle it for me.
This is good. I've been looking at it. I tried to convince my daughter that she should do it, but she doesn't want to. She just wants to look for DIYs on Pinterest.
Because those are fun. That's what my daughter does too.
So one last question here, maybe. We'll see if it's the last question. How do you take this? So if we have our 5 umbrellas of content and 10 in each one, that gives us 50 ideas. How do we then map them out on a calendar?
So you think about like we talked about before, what are the things that your audience members are concerned about at different times of the year? So what are the things, or what are the things that you have coming up as a business owner? So if you have something that you're launching, if you want to back up 12 weeks and start thinking about what are the things that my audience needs to know about, or what do they need to be able to do in order to make the decision to buy this thing, to come to this special event, to attend this new class series? What are the things that they need to be educated about so that they're comfortable with that decision to buy? And then you can kind of back that up and think about the content that you can plug in to blog posts or to podcast episodes or to YouTube videos, wherever and I'm not saying that you need to do all 3 of those. Where are you going to focus? Where are you going to focus your time and efforts, or your money if you're hiring some of it out? And what are you most comfortable doing? Some people are not comfortable with video at all. I have a client that I've worked with for a year, and I have been encouraging her to do video, and she finally agreed to start doing video. I'm so excited. But she's still uncomfortable with it, but she's going to do it. It's just taken a while to work up to that point. So think about, where is your audience? What are they? Where can you connect with them the most? And then how do you run your business? I mean, for people who have physical yoga studios, it's probably going to look a lot different than someone who teaches yoga online through an online platform. So think about where you can show up the best for your audience and how you can promote that, and then just kind of plug it in. So what I like to do is I literally have, in fact, I have it sitting on my desk. I literally have a paper calendar that I print out from just online. I find an online calendar, I print it out, and I start to plug in the different days of the week. So Mondays are YouTube videos, Tuesdays are blogs, Wednesdays are Facebook Lives, and then I literally handwrite the information in, because that's how I think, was with paper and pencil. So I literally will start handwriting the ideas in so that I can see how things are lining up together, and I can see that when I'm doing whatever umbrella topic in the month of February, I can see how it all lines up together and how I'm structuring the content so that it's it's like teaching a skill, or it's educating about something that is in my zone of genius. And so I try to make it all aligned so that when they get the YouTube video, they're interested in the blog post, and then they'll tune into the Facebook Live. And then when the email comes on Friday, it all kind of ties together. It gives me things to link to in that email, so I can link to all the content that's published that week. And then it's all wrapped up in a neat little bow. Sounds easy, right?
It does. Well, you make it look easy as well, like receiving your content, and it always feels valuable. Like I connect with it, and that's why we're even talking right now.
Yeah. Well, and too, also, because I know that all sounds, oh my gosh, that's so much stuff, right? Well, I do a lot of batching. So I batch my content. So I'll sit down when I record videos, I will do 6 or 8 at a time. And I literally have in my office closet, I have changes of shirts, and I record a video, I change my shirt, check my hair, record the next video, change my shirt, and I can do them back to back. And then I have a video editor, so I send them away after that, and I don't have to look at them again, but which is always nice. But yeah, so I batch stuff. When I sit down to write my blog post, I'll write my blog post and I'll write the email that goes with that, because I'm at my computer typing. So it's just really natural for me to write the email that goes out the same week as that blog post. And I already know what the other content's going to be, so it's easier for me to link to that and to reference that as I write the email. And then I can do multiple emails and multiple blog posts in one sitting, because I have that plan ahead of time. So it's all about batching. Really saves a ton of time. And if you have a team member who is loading the stuff for you, it's a lot more efficient for them to load 5 emails at once or 5 blog posts at once than it is for them to load 1 blog post today, 1 next week, because then they have to log in again and they're out of the rhythm. Let them be in that rhythm and have multiple ready at one time.
This is so true. Our team has learned that this year, and we're going to try and do it even more in 2019, because I feel like we're always trying to put 1 podcast episode out every week, and then there's no break. There's no okay, now we have time for other work. So if we batch them together, it goes a lot faster.
Yes. Yeah.
One last question. I know I already said that.
That's okay.
You said in the email that you send out that you link back to other things. Can we ever be sending too many links to different content?
Yes, absolutely. So with every piece of content that you create, no matter where it's going to live, no matter where you're going to share it, think about ultimately, what do you want people to do after, what's the action? What's the call to action at the end of whatever piece of content it is? So this is for emails, this is for blog posts, this is for videos, podcasts, whatever. What do you want them to do? And so sometimes that piece of content is an educational piece. You just want them to learn something new. So maybe you have links in your blog posts that go back to other blog posts, because you don't want, sometimes there's too much information in the blog post and you don't want to re-explain something you've already talked about. So link to it. In an email, what is the ultimate goal? So your ultimate goal for some emails is going to be to sell something. And for some emails, it's going to be you want to link back to different content and send people. So think about what's the most important thing for them to do. So often I'll have a link to the YouTube video and to my blog both. And sometimes I'll have a couple of other links. But when you have, and when I say links, I mean that it should be part of the narrative. It should be part of the story. You don't want to specifically call out, go read this blog post, go read that blog post, go, watch this video. It should be part of the narrative, so it's very natural. And then if you have something that you specifically want them to do, you can call that out at the end and say, go buy now or go watch now. I do that with clients' podcast episodes often. So if they've created a podcast episode and I'm writing the email that goes with it, we want them to go listen to that podcast episode. So sometimes it's a button, sometimes it's larger text in a different color, sending people to that podcast episode, because ultimately that's the goal of that email. So think about that. And then, when you give people too many choices, they get confused, they don't know what to pick, and so then they just don't do anything at all. So think about that anytime you're creating any content at all. What do you want them to do, or what do you want them to know? What's the call to action at the end?
Okay, that's super helpful.
And I should also say too, so if you have done all that nurturing, you've been sending content to your audience, you've been interacting with them, and you want them to buy something, that should be the only link in that email. So if you're launching something and you want people to sign up for that class, that should be the only link to either the Facebook event or to the Eventbrite or to wherever they're going to buy tickets or wherever they're going to RSVP. Let that be the only link so that they will click it.
Okay. That's super helpful. I feel like I'm not always doing that. So that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. So I don't always do that either. And that's okay. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to testing what our audience does, what they want to do, what they're interacting with, what they're responding to. So keep an eye on responses to any content that you put out there and see what is it that's really resonating with people. And then do more of that. So just because that's the quote unquote best practices doesn't mean that's going to work for every single business and every single person out there.
Now, knowing that every business is unique, if you had to choose a time to put out content on a regular basis, what would you choose?
What kind of content?
Like, so let's say an email, because we've talked lots about email. How often are we going to email our audience? If you had to only pick.
Weekly, once a week. And I prefer Fridays, because Fridays are if you watch your inbox, Fridays are a really light day when it comes to email. So mine goes out at 5 a.m. my time, which is, I'm in Arizona. So right now when we're recording, it's a mountain time. Other parts of the year we're Pacific. But I do 5 a.m. mountain time. And because then it's more likely to be at the top of the inbox when somebody sits down at their computer. And just to reflect on my 5 a.m. time, my parents have complained at the timing of my email that their phone dings at 5 a.m. And I've said, but that's okay, because you're not my ideal audience. So I'm going to keep sending it at 5 a.m. Silence your phone.
You're like, my ideal audience knows how to silence their phone.
Yes. So so be careful about who you're taking advice from when it comes to timing and when it comes to the type of content that you're putting out there. Think about, okay, who is telling me this? Are they my ideal audience? And If they're not, thank you very much for your input, and then move on.
Okay, I love it. Thank you so much for all of this today. If people want to work with you further, because I know you do some map it out sessions and you help people with their content, where is the best place to find you?
The best place to find me is abbymherman.com.
Perfect.
That's my website.
Great. Thank you so much for this.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, connected yoga teachers, how was that? Thank you so much, Abby. I feel like there was so much here. I can hardly summarize what my key takeaways were. One thing, though, that I want to highlight here is how Abby talked about the launch definition, how a launch is where we create a narrow focus on one thing that we want our yoga students to purchase. And I have really been looking at my launch sequence, the content that I put out right before something happens, and really adding more time to that. I love how Abby said that it's more time than we usually allow ourselves. And maybe I'm just thinking about myself as a yoga teacher in this, or the teachers that I routinely talk to. So in that, our job is to sell. And I know that can feel uncomfortable. In this launch time, that is our job. We are selling. And this selling, this marketing, is telling people about our offering. And this allows us to stay in business and continue to serve the yoga students in our communities. Another key takeaway for me is Abby talking about when you have too many topics, your information gets watered down and your yoga students don't know what your specialty or your niche is. And if you want to hear my own struggle with niching down, go back and have a listen to episode 106. Okay, one other key takeaway that is helping me a lot right now is this brainstorming, this idea that no idea is a bad idea and just write everything down without any edit time. I've been using this when I label and title podcast episodes because, as some of you know, if you're in our Facebook group, every once in a while I get very stuck and I ask for feedback from listeners and people in our Facebook group. So I want to know, what are your key takeaways? Share it in the comments. And guess what? If you take the time to go over to theconnectedyogateacher.com/107 and leave a comment for us this week in the show notes, that's what automatically enters you in the draw to possibly win a one-on-one content strategy session with Abby. A couple of things to note. This is going to be live. Other people will be able to hear and see you going through your content strategy. And the bonus of that is that everyone gets to see someone led through an example, a yoga teacher led through this process that Abby takes people through. If you are listening in real time, that means that you have until March the 18th, 2019 to enter by leaving a comment in the show notes. And if you're listening afterwards, we'll figure out some way to share that video with you. So either way, head on over to our show notes page, theconnectedyogateacher.com/107. Who wants to meet up in person? Schedulicity is sponsoring a gathering for us in Toronto very soon at the same time as the Toronto Yoga Show. So Friday, March 29th, 2019, mark your calendar. We're having a private gathering for our Connected Yoga Teacher group. All yoga teachers are welcome to attend. Also, if you're going to the Toronto Yoga Show, but you can't make that Friday night, I would love to interview you and ask what your key takeaways are at the conference. I will be there March 28th to 31st, 2019. I just confirmed that my mama is going to go with me as well, who is also a yoga teacher. If you will be there, I would love to connect. And if you can't make it, don't worry. I will be back on the podcast talking about it at some point. If you want to study with me, I am teaching 2 different trainings this year. One is prenatal yoga with the Mama Nurture Yoga School in Bermuda and Meaford, Ontario, both starting very soon, April. Then in November, I'm teaching yoga for pelvic health in Meaford, Ontario. You can go to the connectedyogateacher.com website and look under training and events. And if you can't meet up in person, there are lots of online offerings, so go and check it out. I want to shout out to a couple of yoga teachers who did a really amazing thing and left a review or sent me a note. Tin, thank you so much for telling me that you were listening to episode 74 of the 8 limbs. And you sent me a picture of what you were doing, and I love hearing what listeners are doing. Tin says, I'm a herbalist and a yoga teacher in Bend, Oregon. I'm currently at the apothecary bagging up medicinal herbal tea blends with the 8 Limb podcast on to prep for teaching the 8 limbs at a children's yoga teacher training this weekend. I teach a lot of classes from how to make herbal bath bombs to acro yoga. I love listening to the podcast at the shop to constantly be inspired and to get to be the student. Thanks for all of the great speakers you get and wonderful questions you have for them. Thank you so much, Tin. I loved seeing your photo, and it means a lot that you left a review. Also, thank you to Olivia for leaving a review. And Olivia's review was in Spanish. And I feel like I will butcher it, but I will try. Olivia said, Estupendos recursos para profesores de yoga, which translates to, if my Google Translate is right, great resources for yoga teachers. Thank you so much, Olivia, and I promise I will continue to work on my Spanish. Thank you to our sponsor, Schedulicity. I'm so excited that we get together in person with some of the Schedulicity team soon at the Toronto Yoga Show. Thank you also to our team at the Connected Yoga Teacher, which has grown recently. Samantha, Suzanne, Crunch, and Cindy, thank you for all the work that you do in making this possible. Okay, Connected Yoga Teachers, it's time to sign off. So I want to know, what will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, to your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?